Today, let's make a plant-based Big Mac. All right, this recipe is based on seitan, so we're going to start with a simmering liquid, and for that, I just have a pan of water with about that much water in it. To that, I'm going to add some soy sauce, just maybe a tablespoon or two. Is it really necessary? Probably not. Can you get away without doing this step? Yes. You do need the simmering liquid, though. This goes onto the burner on the stove. On medium-high heat, you want this to start to just bubble. Now to make our seitan. This is going to be just for one Big Mac burger, so scale up if you need to. This is 1/4 cup of vital wheat gluten.
You need vital wheat gluten because otherwise you're not making seitan.
You'd be surprised how many people ask. Half a tablespoon of pea protein powder, 1 teaspoon onion powder, 1 teaspoon garlic powder, 1 tablespoon of paprika. This happens to be smoked. Now that we have all of our dry in there, I just want to give this a quick mix.
Okay, so I know I jumped in there and said that you needed to use vital wheat gluten in order to make seitan, which is true, but there is another process, which is another style of seitan called wash the flour seitan, and that just uses flour where you wash it to end up with basically vital wheat gluten.
Exactly. Okay, now I want to put together our wet ingredients. I have 1/3 cup of vegetable broth. I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of bouquet browning sauce. It's used for gravies. Works really, really well in this burger. 1 tablespoon of black vinegar. We get this at the Asian market. I actually tested the other day what the flavor of it is, and it's actually very close to balsamic vinegar. So if you cannot get black vinegar, you can try it with balsamic vinegar, but just use half. And then 1 tablespoon of soy sauce. I'm just going to give that a little bit of a swirl to mix it together, and then start pouring it into our dry mix. I'm only going to put about half of it in to begin with to see if we need it all. Well, that was more than half. Start mixing it together. You'll know pretty quick if you need all of it or not. See how it's not looking like it's going to take all that dry in. Okay. I'm just going to add it all.
A quick tip, if you find yourself with extra liquid, because you've already mixed it together, you can just add that to your simmering broth, and that way the flavor will still end up in your seitan.
Yeah, that's actually a really good idea because we use a similar concept in the simmering broth anyway. At some point, you just got to use the best tools you got, and that is your hands. Get in there, get all the dry off the sides, and get this mixed up really good. It should be moist, not necessarily sopping wet, but moist. If you find that it's too wet, like it's just very, very liquidous and doesn't seem to want to hold together, you can add a little bit more vital wheat gluten in there if you need to. This looks about right. Now, I'm going to knead it with my hands. I'm just going to hold it in my hands and just kind of smash it and fold it over. What that does is it builds up the gluten strands. It gets your hands all nice and covered in paprika too. Okay, we do want to have some strands. So when you do this, you want it to have a little bit of resistance to you because if not, it'll fall apart. But it is a burger too. It's made of ground stuff, so you definitely don't want it to be too firm. There we go. You see how that came apart nicely? That's what we want. What I want to do now, though, is get this made into 2 burgers because, you know, the Big Mac has 2 burgers. By the way, I said Big Mac, but this is more like a Big Mac-like clone, okay? It's not exactly a Big Mac because, you know, that's copyrighted and trademarked and all that kind of stuff, and we can't really do that. But I split that in half, and I'm going to make 2 burgers out of it. These need to be fairly small because they do expand a bit in cooking, so you want to be careful with that.
And by small, what he actually means is thin. You want to pound them down a bit so that way they're thin.
When I get them on the board, something I like to do is kind of make a border with my hand. That way I don't get frayed edges. See, I can just keep my fingers kind of half curled around it like that, and it builds that wall around the edge. But I am trying to keep these relatively thin.
Yeah, you probably want them to look thinner than what you're anticipating because they are going to poof up in the cooking process.
Yes. So something about like that. And do the same thing with the other one. Now that our patties are made, it's time to start the cooking process. And for that, we're going to go over to the stove and fry them up. Okay, so what you want to do is get your pan going on about medium to medium-high heat. I go about 5 to 6 on our stove, and I put in a little bit of canola oil just to lubricate things so they don't stick. And then we put in our burgers at 3 to 4 minutes per side. And once we've browned them on both sides, transfer them to the simmering liquid for 25 minutes. Make sure that that simmering liquid is not actually boiling. You want it just a simmer, you know, a light bubble here and there. Once the 25 to 30 minute simmer is up, you want to remove your burgers, put them into a glass container or other container, cover them, and put them in the fridge overnight. If you can't go overnight, at least 3 to 4 hours. This will drastically alter the texture, making them much more burger-like. Okay, one of the things that makes a Big Mac is their special sauce. Now, I'm going to break with some of the actual rules because their special sauce does not contain ketchup. Mine does. I have here some of our cashew mayo, which we have to make a video on, but we do have a plant-based mayo video already. I'm just going to use about 2 tablespoons of this. You can use Vegenaise or any mayo of your choice, really. I'm just making enough for, well, you know what? I'll make enough for a couple of burgers because you never know. It's a good stuff.
Our cashew mayo is super thick, as you can tell, due to my patented mixing method. Wahaha.
That you need to do a video on that too.
Yeah.
To that, I'm going to add some tomato ketchup, and this is Simply, which means there's no artificial sweeteners in it. How much? It's to taste, but probably a couple of tablespoons. So I have about a 1/4 cup of mayo, a couple tablespoons of ketchup.
This is very precise.
Oh yeah, this is super precise. Then I have some onion powder, and I'm just going to add, I'd call that probably about 3/4 of a teaspoon. Garlic powder, about the same. Maybe that's a full teaspoon. I like garlic. I like smoked paprika in this sauce, so I'm just going to add 1/2 teaspoon, maybe 3/4 of a teaspoon.
If you're unsure of the volumes as Brian is randomly throwing stuff in a bowl, use your taste buds, and that way you'll know what's right for you.
I'm going to be using sweet relish. Don't mind it being upside down. Just maybe a couple of glugs out of this. You can cut up pickles too and use that. I actually like the pickle relish in this. It works really, really well. I have probably 2 tablespoons there. And then mix. This is the advantage to having a really thick mayo. Once you put everything else in there, it thins this sauce a lot. So
Yeah, that was one reason why I wanted to mention how thick our mayo is, because if you use a commercially made vegan mayonnaise, it's not going to be as thick as ours, and so you might end up with a slightly runnier sauce.
which is okay too. Just be aware of it. But look at that. Now I got to give it a taste, of course. Oh yeah, that's special sauce right there. Okay, don't get out the fancy romaine. You want iceberg lettuce for this. And I'm just going to take a little chunk off the side of this head of lettuce and slice that up. Enough for 1 burger. And I'm really just doing like a really fine slice. Just make sure you still have 10 fingers when you're done, if you had 10 when you started. And like that, shredded lettuce. Next up is onion. And for that, I don't need a lot. So I'm just going to cut a nice thick slice off of this. Save the rest because, you know, it's still a good onion. Peel off the paper because nobody wants to eat the paper. And then I'm going to finely mince this up. Okay, after your burgers have been in the fridge overnight, they firm up nicely, something like this. I'm going to get my grill pan, put it on the stove on medium heat. If you don't have one of these, you could just use the same frying pan you used for the frying, but it's going to require a little bit of oil. I just do a light spritz on this so I get a little bit lower oil absorption into the food.
Brian has a love obsession with this pan. I'll make sure to link it in the description below.
I have it in both sizes. They make 2, a little one and a big one. I may not have mentioned it, but you want to toast your buns. And for buns, we're just using a standard burger bun with 2 bottoms. So we have a middle, you know. Some people will shave that off. I think that's kind of waste. So we're just going to use the whole thing. Our burgers have been grilled. Now comes the assembly part. So we have our first burger bottom. On that, I'm going to put a nice dollop of our sauce and spread it around a little bit. Don't be prissy about it. You can put a lot on there if you want, but there's like 5 layers of sauce, so...
You want to be a little careful with the sauce if you want this burger to stay together at all, because more sauce equals slippery.
Structural integrity is a thing. Next is some shredded onion. This is probably my favorite part of the Big Mac, honestly, the sauce and the onions, because of that little bit of a crunch that they add.
So you can go as heavy or as light on the onion as you wish. As you can see, Brian is going on the heavy side.
That's heavy? What's next?
Shredded lettuce.
Okay, good layer of shredded lettuce on there. Again, there's a couple layers of lettuce on this, and lettuce can be a shifty thing too, so you want to be kind of careful.
Now this is where I get confused. Does the cheese come next or does the pickles come next?
On the Big Mac, the cheese comes next. Which, to me, this is weird, because the cheese isn't going to be melted. Especially since, you know, yeah, but it's just weird. But that's how they do it.
Yeah, this is plant-based cheese. So if you want to melt your plant-based cheese on your burger, we will not tell the Big Mac police.
And then comes patty number 1. On top of that is 2 pickles.
Okay. We're just using store-bought hamburger pickles.
Yep, the cheapest ones you can find. They're usually the best for making burgers. And then comes the middle bun. Just goes right on like that. But before I put it on there, I am going to put the sauce on it.
It's a good idea to sauce your bun rather than sauce the burger itself.
Yep.
Because of that structural integrity thing we talked about earlier.
So that goes on top of that. And guess what's next?
Onion.
More onion. And then...
lettuce.
Then comes our second burger patty.
So the pickles always go on top of the patty?
Pickles go on top of the patty.
Pickles go on the patty. See, that's like a mnemonic thing that we can remember.
Okay, I gotta wash my hands before I dig out pickles because I got onions all over my hands. 1 pickle and 2 more pickles. But you know what? Since the other 2 were that diagonal, I'm gonna put them this diagonal.
Oh, you're fancy.
That way they're separate. Pickle in every bite.
We're almost done.
Only 2 more layers to go.
Now remember, sauce your bun, not your burger.
That's right. You have the top bun, more sauce. Like I said, there's several layers of sauce. Put the sauce on that, then goes on top. Okay.
This is a thing of beauty.
At this point, we have to take some pictures and make some video of this, and then we'll be back to show you how it tastes. Okay. We made a Big Mac-like product.
Now we get to reap the efforts of our reward. What is the word? There's a phrase.
And now I can't think of it either. It's been one of those days. So I just want to say something. You know what a Big Mac is, right? It's 2 all Seitan patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun. And that's what we have here.
Smooth. That was smooth.
Wasn't that good? Okay, I want to cut this in half. Funny story. When we were deciding to do this video, I was like, oh, this will be an easy one. No big deal. Oh my God, no. You know, not that a lot of things go wrong. It's just you forget all the little things that go into making a video like this. It's crazy. Okay, so I just cut it in half. So we each get half.
Oh, look at that.
This is beautiful.
That is gorgeous. This is going to be messy, and I apologize up front for the
yummy
spectacle,
noises and everything else.
but we're going in.
The lettuce is wonderful. I just have to say that. In a previous life, I could probably have subsisted on Big Macs alone. I have been known to eat 3 and even 4 in a sitting.
This is satisfying.
This is really, really close. Like this is
fantastic.
This is 90% there. If you're missing Big Macs on a plant-based diet, this will do it. And if you really wanted to, you could swap out the burger for almost anything. Those burgers will last in the fridge. You can even freeze them. There's a lot of ways you can go with this. Wow, though. This is amazing.
So the cheese was that chow?
It was chow cheese, yeah.
And I'm dripping, so I don't want to eat more on camera.
Yeah.
Because I know it's going to get all over my face.
So we're going to finish these. But you should make this because this is awesome. This is one of the best things we've made.
Impress your friends.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time on The Bistro.